When the Mishnah and Daf Hey Medalev, Zog Heilige Mishnah, Ad Mosai Shoyalin Esageshamim, until when do we ask for rain? Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad Sheyaver Pesach, until the end of Pesach. Rabbi Meir says, Ad Sheyetze Nisan, until the end of the month of Nisan. So where do you see that you need rain until the end of Nisan? Shanama, there's a pasuk that says, V'yored lechem geshem, moire u'malkosh b'rishon. The Eibusha brought down rain, moire u'malkosh. Moire is the early rain, malkosh is the late rain, the last rain, and it all came down when? B'rishon, in the first month of the year in Nisan. So you see that still in the month of Nisan it rains. So therefore you stop saying Masha v'ruach moire de geshem and the same talamatar in the end of month of Nisan. Sagt the Gemara, Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman said to Rav Yitzchak about the pasuk that's brought there in this Mishnah. Yoire b'Nisan, the early rain of the season, that comes in the month of Nisan. How could you say such a thing? Yoire b'Mar Cheshvenu, the first rain of the season, when does that come? Before, right when you plant, before it grows, it comes in Cheshvan. The Tanan, or the other case over here is the Tanya, we learn in the Braise, Yoire b'Mar Cheshvan, the early rain comes in Cheshvan. Malkish b'Nisan, and Malkish, which means the late rain after it's already growing and you need the rain at the end of the season, that comes in the month of Nisan. So why is this pasuk here saying that even the early rain comes in the month of Nisan? Amalei, so he answered him, Hochi Omar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said about the pshat of this pasuk. B'mei Yoel ben Pesul Niskayim Mikrazeh. In the times of the Navi Yoel, this is when this pasuk was fulfilled. The Chsiv Bey, what it says there is, Yeser hagozem ochel ha'arbe. They had then a makkah of arbe, of grasshoppers that came and ate up all the food. And then there was a gozem, there was something else similar to the grasshoppers that also came and ate up all the food. So they had no food to eat. So what happened then? Now, Oisa Shana, so that year, Yotza Adar, the whole entire season of the winter already passed, and even the month of Adar passed, V'lo geshamim, and it didn't rain the whole winter. So, Yardalahem Revir Rishaina, the time when it rained the first time, which is what's called Yoire, the first rain was Be'echad Ben Nisan, was in the beginning of in the month of Nisan. So the Yidden didn't plant anything, or whatever they planted all winter, didn't grow at all. So now, Amalem Navi Yisrael, the Navi told the Yidden, Tzu'u V'zaru, go out and plant what you have now in the month of Nisan, and it's going to grow. You'll have what to eat. Amrulai, they said to the Navi, Mishi yeshle kav chitim. If someone has one kav, one measure of chitim, of wheat, or kabayim sa'irim, if you have a measure, a little bit more of barley, yechlenu v'yichya, should he save it and use it to eat and live? Or yizre'enu v'yamus? Or should he plant it now in the month of Nisan when it's after the season and it's not going to grow anymore and then you're going to die? So how can we listen to you to go ahead and plant it now if we need this pashat for basic food to be able to survive? Amar lehem, so he answered them, the Navi says, no, afal pikein, nevertheless, go ahead, su'u vizaru, go ahead and plant what you have, and it's going to grow. So what happened? Nasalem nes, a miracle occurred, v'nizgala lehem masha b'kisalim, they found these kernels and these pieces of wheat and barley, whatever it is that they found inside that was hidden in the walls. You have the mice that hide these things in the walls. Umasha b'chayrin emalim. And they also found the different kernels that the ants hide in their holes. So they had extra to eat for themselves. And Yatsu Vizaru. And they went out and they planted the kernels of the grains that they had. They went out and planted. And then after they planted, so now they had these extras that they found in the walls and in the ant holes to be able to eat from it. So when did they plant? So Yatsu Vizaru Sheni Ishlishi Revi. The second day of Nisan, the third day of Nisan, the fourth day of Nisan, they went out and they planted. And V'yardu Lahem Revi Shniya B'chamisha B'Nisan. And then the second rain came down in the fifth day of Nisan. So again, it rained the first time on a Shchedish Nisan, and then they listened to the Navi and they planted, and then it rained again in the fifth day of Nisan. And what happened? Hakrivu Oime B'Shisha Asa B'Nisan. And the grain, the wheat, the barley, it grew so quickly that they had it fully ripe, available to be used to bring for the carbon oimer on the 16th day of Nisan. So Nimtzis, it came out, Tvua Gedela B'Shisha Chadashim. The grain that it usually takes 6 months to grow, Gedela B'Chadasa Yom. So then it grew in 11 days. The second rain was in Chamisha B'Nisan, and that's when it was growing, started growing, and then it grew till 16th of Nisan, it was already fully ripe. That was the nest that happened that year, that both the Yoire and the Malkish, the early rain and the late rain, was all in the month of Nisan. Regarding that generation, it says in Tilim, Hazayrim bedima, they planted with tears. And by then, berina yiktzaire, with joy they reaped. Halach yeluchu vachay, they were going and crying. Noisei meshach hazara. But then they were carrying meshach hazara, they were carrying the what they planted. So what does this pasuk mean? So the beginning of the pasuk we understand. Hazayrim bedima, they were planting with tears because they didn't have what to eat, so they were crying when they were planting. But they listened to the Navi and they planted anyways. What does it mean then when it says again, halach yeluchu vachay, that they were crying? My halach yeluchu vachay, noisei meshach v'gaimer. Rav Yehuda said the miracle happened as follows. Shiur keshu chayrish. So the ox in the field, when it was plowing, so on his way going to plow, he was crying because the cow has nothing, the ox has nothing to eat when he's plowing the field. But then when the ox came back, from the very same road that he just plowed, he already had some of the shoots that were coming out of the field that he was able to eat from. That's how quickly it began growing. Immediately he had already what to eat on the way back. This is what it means. It's regarding the ox that was joyous when he came back from plowing the field. My noise alamaysav. What is the pasuk adding when it says noise alamaysav? That he's carrying the bundles of the grain. Amrav chiste v'amrilav masnite tane nabraise kone zeres shibayla zeresayim. The stalk. Every wheat has the stalk, and then you have the kernels that are at the top. So usually the stalk is much taller, and then at the top of it you have a smaller amount of the kernels that grow there. But over here it was the other way around. Kone, the stalk of the wheat was a zeres, was a measure of a zeres. But the shibailes, the place, the ears of the wheat, where you have the kernels, over there zeresayim. It was double the amount, double the size. This was a huge miracle. Not only it grew so quickly, but you had so much more grain over here what to eat. Okay, so this is what Rav Nachman said to Rav Yitzchak to explain to him the pasuk of the Mishnah of Yoire and Malkish in the month of Nisan that happened in that year. Now, in the continuation of the Gemara, it's going to bring a bunch of different things, psukim and all different subjects, all again what Rav Nachman asked Rav Yitzchak and what he responded to him, and in the name of Rav Yochanan. So, Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. Mai dechsiv. What is the meaning of this pasuk that it says? Kikara Hashem l'rov. There was a hunger that the Eibishter brought, v'gam ba la'aretz sheva shanim. And there was a hunger, this is in the times of Achav, there was a hunger for 7 years. So Gemara says, B'hanach sheva shanim ma'yachal. So if there was a hunger, no rain for 7 years, so what did they eat for 7 years? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered him, Hachi Amar, Rav Yitzchak, answered him, Hachi Amar Rav Yochanan. This is what Rav Yochanan said. Shana Rishayna, first year of the hunger, Achlo Mashe bebatim. They ate from the food that they still had in the house. Shnia, the second year, Ochlo Mashe Besadis. They ate what was left in the field. Shlishis, in the third year, there was no more produce in the field. So Bsar Behemet Tahira. They ate from the meat of kosher animals. Revi'is, in the fourth year, Bsar Behemet Tmeya. They ate from non-kosher animals. Chamishis, in the fifth year, Bsar Shkatzim Uremasim. They ate from creeping, crawling things, all kinds of things that they can eat. Then Shishis, in the sixth year, Bsar Beneim Ubneseim. They ate from the meat of their own children. And Shvi'is, in the seventh year, their hunger was so strong, Bisar Zreisayim. They ate the meat from their very own arms, from their own bodies. L'kayim Hashanema, this fulfills the curse that it says in the Navi, Ish Bisar Zreya Yeichlu, that a person will eat the meat from himself, from his own body. That's how bad the hunger was in that time. Rav Nachman asked Rav Yitzchak regarding another pasuk. What's the meaning of the pasuk where it says, Bekir B'cha Kadosh? With amongst you there's sanctity, and I will not come into the city. So what does this pasuk mean? Bishom de bekir b'cha kadosh, because there's holiness amongst you. So I don't come into the city. Adarabah, the Eibusha should come into the city. Amalei. So he explained to him. Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Amar Hakadosh Baruch. The Eibusha says, Le'avai b'Yerushalayim shal Maila. I will not enter into the Yerushalayim that there is above in the Shamayim Beruchnius until I come into Yerushalayim here below. So the pasuk is saying Bekir B'cha Kadosh, that there's sanctity amongst you, but V'loi Ave Be'ir, the pasuk is saying I'm not going to come into Yerushalayim Shal Maila until the Eibusha first comes into Yerushalayim Shal Mata. In other words, it's negayah to the Eibishter, the matzav of the Yidden here below, the Yerushalayim Shel Mata. Only when the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt here below, then Lamaila as well, there'll be the revelation, Yerushalayim Shel Maila. Fragt the Gemara, Mi Ika Yerushalayim Lamaila? Is there a Yerushalayim above in heaven? So Gemara says, the Chsiv, there's a pasuk that says, Yerushalayim Abnuya, Yerushalayim when it's built, Ki'ir Shechubra La Yachtav, like the city that's attached to it, that's connected to it. So what does this mean? Chubra La Yachtav. So Chubra is like Malashon Chaver, when you have a counterpart, a friend, a colleague. So what it means is that there's Yerushalayim Shel Maila and there's Yerushalayim Shel Mata, that's a counterpart to Yerushalayim Shel Mata. Huh? Yeah, right. Yeah. So then Rav Yitzchak and Shalach, they Yerushalayim Shel Maila and Yerushalayim Shel Mata. Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak, another pasuk that Rav Nachman asked Rav Yitzchak about. What's the meaning of the pasuk that it says, Uva'achas yivaru v'yichsalu, that they're foolish and musar havalim eitzu. So the simple pshat of the pasuk is that whatever rebuking you give them, it's pointless, because it's like you try to rebuke a piece of wood. There's no one to hear, there's no one to accept it, and the Yidden are not accepting musar; they're completely closed off. That's the simple pshat of the pasuk. So he explained to him there's a different pshat. Amalei hachi yomer Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan explained this pasuk as follows: Achasi, there's one aveda shemeva'eres rishayim begehenim, which burns up, which eradicates the rishayim in the gehenim. There's one aveda that's worse than everything else. And mahi, what's that aveda? Aveda zara, serving aveda zara. How do we know this pasuk is speaking about aveda zara? Because ksiv hacha musar havalim eitzu. So it uses the term havalim, which means nonsense, foolishness. Uksiv hasam, regarding Avodah Zarah, it says, hevel heima maisa tatuim. That Avodah Zarah's hevel is nonsense. So it uses the same term as hevel. So therefore we know that this pasuk is saying that there's this one inyan of Avodah Zarah that burns up to the Shaim in Gehenna. Malei Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak. Rav Nachman said to Rav Yitzchak, what's the pshat in this pasuk here where it says, Ki shtayim rois asa ami. There are two things that are bad that my nation has done. So this is a pasuk in Yirmiyah where it talks about the Averis of the Yidden. So the Gemara asks, Tartan Hudahavya? In that generation there was only two things that they did that were bad. Esrim va'arba shvikiluhu. There were 24 things that the Yidden did that they left the Eibishter. Or others are going to say in the Gemara, Esrim Tarti, there were 22. So Rashi says, if you look over there in the pasuk in Yecheskel, there's a parsha there where it describes 22 or 24 Averis that the Yidden did. It describes it over there. There's another actually pshat in the end over here. Rashi says that the 24 that the Gemara is saying here refers to the fact that they were over on everything that it says in all the 24 svarim of Tanakh. So it's not only two averis. The Yidden then sinned much more than that. So what is it? Why does it say over here in the pasuk only two? Amalei hachiyam Rabbi Yechanan. So Rabbi Yechanan explained, Achas. There's one aver here that this pasuk is speaking about. Shehishkula kishtayim, which is as so weighty, so powerful that it's like two Vedas together. What is that? This refers to Avodah Zarah. The Chsiv, regarding Avodah Zarah, it says, Ki shtayim rois asa ami. Right, so this pasuk of shtayim rois asa ami, so the Gemara now here brings a continuation of this pasuk, that it says that Oisi Azvu, the Yidden have left me, Mekoy Ma'im Chaim, the source of living waters, Lachzev Lahem, Ba'ereis Nishbarim. The Yidden go to get the water from broken cisterns, places where the water leaks out and they're not going to get any good water there. Oksiv Buhu, what does it say over there in the pasuk? Ki Avru Kitiyim, if you're going to go and look in the islands, in the place where the Kitiyim are, where the Kutim are, Ru'u, and you'll see over there. The Kedar, you'll go to the place where the nation of the Kadarim are. Shilchu, send people there. Ve'izbainu ma'ayid, and go and think and go and contemplate what they are doing. And go see what happens with them. Ha'heimir goya lehim, do they exchange, do they leave their God that they serve? And v'heima loya lehem, and the God that they serve is not a God b'chlal. Right? They have an Avodah Zarah, but do they leave their Avodah Zarah? No. And va'ami heime kvaydai below yoyel. And my nation, they exchange Eibishter's honor for something else that's worthless and pointless. So when it says over here, shkula kishtayim, so Rashi says that the point is that the Yidden are when they serve Avodah Zarah, are not learning from these other two nations, so they're even worse than the Kutim, and they're worse from the Kadarim. The Kutim were nearer to the Yidden, and the Kadarim were further away. That's why it says Shilchu. So it's considered to be like two Averis because they're even worse than these two nations of the Kutim and Kadarim. Gemara brings a Braise. Tana and a Braise we learned. Kutiyim oivdim leish. The kutim, their avodah zarah is they serve the fire. Kadariyim oivdim lemayim. The kadariyim, their avodah zarah is water. And v'afal pisha yaidim, even though they see and they know themselves, sha'amayim mechabim eseish, the water extinguishes fire. Right? So they see themselves that what power their God is. But nevertheless, they don't exchange, they don't leave their God. But va'ami, my nation, the Yidden, they exchange and they leave the honor of the Eibishter for something else that has no benefit whatsoever. So that's the shkula kishtayim that it says regarding Avodah Zarah. Another pasuk Rav Nachman asked Rav Yitzchak about. What's the pshat of this pasuk where it says, Vayihi ki zoken Shmuel, and Shmuel was in his older age. He was old already. So the Gemara asks, so mi siv Shmuel kolahai? Was Shmuel that old? V'ha barnun beis have. Shmuel, when he passed away, was only 52 years old. So he's not that old at all. So how could the pasuk say that he was old? Amamar meis benun beis shana. He passed away when he was 52. Again, meis benun beis shana. An individual that passes away at the age of 52, zeu Shmuel Aramasi. This is the lifetime. He's passing away the same age as Shmuel Aramasi. So why does the pasuk say that Shmuel was so old? So Rav Nachman explained to him, Rav Yitzchak that is explained to him, this is what Rav Yechanan said, Zikna Kovtza Olav. That all of a sudden, he wasn't so old, but all of a sudden he became very old and frail. The pasuk says, Nichamti kihimlachti eshol. So the Gemara will explain why all of a sudden he became old. Because the Eibishter said that I've regretted the fact that I made Shaul HaMelech as a king. The Eibishter wanted to take away the kingdom from Shaul. So now Shmuel says to the Eibishter, Rebbeinu Shalaylam, Master of the universe, Shekaltani k'Moshe v'Aaron. You considered me to be equal to Moshe and Aaron. Dichsiv Moshe v'Aaron b'Kayanov, u'Shmuel b'Kayrei Shemai. So Shmuel is compared to Moshe and Aaron. So now, Moshe v'Aaron le'batl ma'aseh yadayim b'chayayim. Just like when it comes to Moshe and Aaron, so their actions are not batl in their lifetime. Whatever they did in their lifetime stayed. So too, af ani, the same should be with me regarding Shaul HaMelech, that I came and appointed him as a king. Le'izbatl ma'aseh yadayim b'chayayim. So the action that I did, that I made Shaul as a king, should not be annulled in my lifetime. So don't remove Shaul HaMelech in my lifetime. So Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so the Eibishter says, Hey Chayevet, so what should I do now? Lema Shaul, should Shaul pass away, like Kashavik Shmuel? Shmuel is not letting me. Shmuel has a good taina. Lema Shmuel, on the other hand, should Shmuel pass away, so at the Zutter, at such a young age, Shmuel is going to pass away at such a young age, and then the Eibishter could take away the Melucha from Shaul HaMelech, Meranani Abasrei. People are going to come and start saying, there'll be rumors about Shmuel. Look what happened. Shmuel passed away at such a young age. It must be he wasn't such a great tzaddik after all. So that's also not an option. Now, Shmuel. So you know what? So maybe Shaul HaMelech should continue being king, and Shmuel should continue to live. And then later, when Shmuel will pass away, then David will take away the kingdom from Shmuel and from Shaul, that is, and give it over to David HaMelech. So that's also not an option. Kvarigia Malchus David. The time of David HaMelech to be a king has already arrived. Ve'en Malchus negas b'chaverta afilu k'meloi nima. The kingdom of one cannot overlap and touch the kingdom of the next king that's destined to be king, even one little meloi nima, like a little hair. So therefore, it's already the time for David HaMelech to be king, and Shaul HaMelech has to be removed. So what are we going to do? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so the Eibishter says, Akfitz olav zikna. I will bring upon Shaul HaMelech, Shmuel that is, I will bring upon Shmuel that he's going to become old and frail. So he's not going to just all of a sudden pass away at a young age. All of a sudden, people are going to see that Shmuel became old. And therefore, people are going to say, oh, he passed away because he was old, not because of any Avedis that happened. And Hainu Dechsiv, this is also what the Pasuk says. V'shal Yoshev begiva tachas ha'eshel. Shaul HaMelech was sitting in the Giva, on the mountain, tachas ha'eshel, under a tree, berama, and he was in Rama. So the Gemara says, V'chema in Giva etzel Rama. Giva, the hill that he was living in, and the Rama is in two different places. As Rashi over here brings, the Giva is by Binyamin. Giva's Binyamin. And Rama is the name of a place that's by Ephraim. It's two totally different places. So why does it say that he was sitting in the Giva by the Rama? Elalei melacha, what the pasuk is saying is, Mi garam l'shal she'esher begiva shtei shanim u'mechza. Who is the one that caused for the fact that Shaul HaMelech should be a king and where he was in the mountain for 2.5 years? Tefillah shel Shmuel Ramasi. It's the tefillah of Shmuel that lived in Ramah. He's the one that davened that Shaul should not be removed until he passes away. So in the end, he was a king for 2.5 years. And only after Shmuel passed away was his kingdom removed from him. Okay, but now the Gemara has a question on this. What does it come out? The Emes Shmuel HaMelech was supposed to live much longer. But it's only because David HaMelech had to become a king, so the Eibusher took away the life of Shmuel HaMelech. Fragt the Gemara, Umi mitchi gavra mikami gavra. Do you find such a thing? That the Eibusher takes away the life of one person because of the zuchos and the position that another person is supposed to get? In other words, Shmuel HaMelech was not really supposed to pass away at this point. It's only because of David HaMelech. Does the Eibusher do such a thing? So the Gemara says, yes, it is possible. The Amar Rab Shmuel ben Achmeni, Amar Rab Yechanan, or others are great, Amar Rab Yenison. What does it mean this that it says? Al-Kain Chatzafti b'Nevim. I have decreed by the Nevi'im, Haraktim, and I have killed them be'imrei fi, with the words of my mouth. So the Gemara explains that this was imrei fi, this was a gzeira of the Eibishter, which means b'ma'aseyem loy nemar. It's not because of their deeds that they sinned, that they deserve to pass away. That's why there was a gzeira here. Ela b'imrei fi. It says with the words of the Eibishter's mouth, meaning that sometimes there is a gzeira from the Eibishter that one person has to pass away, even though he himself doesn't even deserve to pass away. So Alma, we see the same we could say over here also, mitchi gavre mikami gavre. One person, his life can get pushed off because of exeda that there is for another person, in this case, that David HaMelech has to become the king. Dr. Gemara, Rav Nachman, Rav Yitzchak, Havu, Yasvi, Besudasa. So Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak, which is what this whole sugi here was about, the various questions that Rav Nachman asked to Rav Yitzchak. So once they were sitting together by a meal. Amalei Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak, so Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, Leime mar milsa, why don't you share something? Amalei, so Rav Yitzchak tells him, Hachiyam Rav Yechanan, this is what Rav Yechanan said, Ein masichem besuda. You're not allowed to speak in the middle of a suda. Shemayaktim kana levesht. Maybe the windpipe that gets open when you speak will then the food can go down that pipe and it's dangerous. V'yavle de sakana. So therefore he says, I can't tell you anything now. Now, Basa the Sod, after they finished the meal, so now he said to him something. Amalei, Hachiyam Rav Yechanan, this is what Rav Yechanan said. Yaakov Avinu loy meis. The Yaakov Avinu did not pass away. Amalei, so Rav Nachman tells Rav Yitzchak, so v'chibichdi, softus, avdaya, v'chontu, chantaya. So did they eulogize him for nothing? And the chanita, what's the word for chanita in English? Embalming. Did they do that? Embalming. Okay, sorry. So did they do that for no reason whatsoever? And the covered kavraya, and they also buried him if he's still alive. So then why do we see that they treated him like a person that passes away? Amalei. So he explained them. Rav Yitzchak says to him, Mikra ani daidish. I'm darshaning, I'm expounding upon what it says in the pasuk. Shenema, it says in the pasuk, V'ata al tiravdi Yaakov, don't be afraid, my servant Yaakov, num Hashem. Eibishter says, Val techas Yisrael, and the Yidden shouldn't be afraid, Ki hinini Mashiacha mirachek, I will help you even from far, Ve'ezaracha, and your descendants, Me'eretz Shivyam, in the land where they are captured. So therefore, in this pasuk, it begins speaking about Yaakov, and it concludes speaking about his descendants. Makish hu lezare. So I compare Yaakov to his descendants. Ma zare b'chayim, just like his descendants are still alive. Afu b'chayim. So too, Yaakov himself is still alive. This is the famous Gemara that says that Yaakov lemeis, because ma zare b'chayim, afu b'chayim. The Rebbe spoke about this Gemara many, many times, as it's known. When you get to the actual story here, the Rebbe once explained this in the Fabrengen of Chafaf, Tav Shalom Aleph, the story itself regarding the middle of the Suda, that he asked him to say something. So the question that the Mefarshim ask is, Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, say a Dvar Torah for me in the middle of the Suda. He didn't know that you're not supposed to speak in the middle of the Suda? Why is he saying this to him? And even when he gave the answer, how did he answer him? If it's in the middle of the Suda, how could he even answer him and say, Ei Masichem B'Suda? That itself is speaking in the middle of the Suda. Okay, so the point of here is, he must have answered him not in the middle of eating. So the Levush says that if when you're eating the Suda, and it's between one course and another course, and you're not eating then, you're allowed to speak. Okay? Otherwise, if we mashal any meal we have, a Shabbos meal, whatever it is, you wouldn't be allowed to speak at all. Can't say Dvar Torah. Okay, so you're allowed to speak between one course and another. That's one point. But the other point of here is, the reason why Rav Nachman was asking him to speak is because Rav Nachman held this whole halacha of not speaking in the middle of the Suda is if you're speaking Stam, whatever, any mundane words, divrei chulin. But if you're speaking words of Torah is not something that will bring a danger to a person. The Gemara says the words of Torah is something that protects a person, doesn't bring a danger. So therefore you can speak in the middle of the Suda words of Torah. That was Rav Nachman's opinion. Rav Yitzchak says to him, no, it's not. Even the words of Torah, if it's in the middle of a meal, the Gemara says that even a shliach mitzvah, that will not be harmed, but if he goes into a place which is shchia chazeka, where it's common to be damaged, hurt in such a place, so over there, even a shliach mitzvah could be harmed as well. So therefore he's telling him, yes, true, it's divrei Torah, but in the middle of a meal where if a person speaks, it's very common that a person could hurt himself, over here, the words of Torah will not protect you. Right? And therefore he had to answer him. He answered him and he explained to him, it's a sakana. He didn't stop answering him, he explained to him that it's a sakana so that he should understand that this applies even to divrei Torah. So the Rebbe interestingly connects it also to the next piece of here about Yaakov Leimeis, and the Rebbe says, what is the Gemara ultimately saying? What's the source of Yaakov Avinu Leimeis? The reason why Yaakov Leimeis is because Mazare B'chayim Afu B'chayim. So over here, the Chiddush is, even though when it comes to Zarai, the descendants of Yaakov Avinu, the descendants of Yaakov Avinu are going into Golos, and they're all over in the world in places which are Shchia Chazeka. So you may think to yourself that, look, how could you say that Yaakov is like Meis because of his Zera, because of his descendants that remain alive? The descendants go into a place where there's such hardships and such difficulties in Golos, so the Zera is not safe and secure either. So he tells him, no, that's not true though. When you get to the Zera of Yaakov Avinu, even though it is Shchia Chazeke, nevertheless, they remain alive, and therefore, Mazare B'chayim, Afu B'chayim. That's the connection to this story, to this Indian of Emasichim Basuda. Regarding this very Indian itself of Yaakov Avinu Leimeis, so there's the pshat of Rashi. Rashi over here says that the simple pshat in the Gemara according to Rashi is when it says Yaakov Avinu Leimeis, it doesn't mean Beruchnias, it means Begashmias. Rashi says Nidme Lahem Shemeis. The Marsha, other Mefarshim say that the pshat in the Gemara of Yaakov Leimeis means Beruchnias, but Begashmias he did pass away. But according to Rashi, the pshat of Yaakov Leimeis means Poshet Bepashtus Begashmias. And when the Gemara says Mazare B'chayim Afu B'chayim, it's a proof. It's not because the Zera is alive, so therefore Beruchnias, this is the life of Yaakov Avinu, that's continuing. We're proving it. If by Zara you see that they are alive, so therefore this proves that by Yaakov himself, he has a level of life that he never passes away, even Pashat Bepashtus Begashmis. That's Rashi's pshat in the simple pshat of the Gemara. The Gemara continues and says, Rav Yitzchak said, Kol ha'omer Rachav Rachav, a person that says the name Rachav Rachav, which is the name of a very, very beautiful woman, so miyad nikri, this immediately can cause the person to have a tumas keri, because this is something that's ma'ira, the taiva of znus by a person, and therefore you can right away become a keri. Amalei Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman responded to Rav Yitzchak and said, Ano amina, I said this name Rachav Rachav aleich bisli, and nothing happened to me. Amalei, so he explained to him, Kika mina b'yoida b'makira. When did I say this? If there's a woman, this beautiful woman, and you say her name, and you know her personally, so that's something that could be aroused, this taiva, and make a person a keri. So this is very interesting how this comes into the Gemara right over here. The Rebbe says that this is also connected. Because even though the Gemara is speaking about Rachav Rachav, which was apparently a woman in those times that was very beautiful, but it's Bechlal. It's not only then, it's been negated to any time. Been negated to such a thing when a person puts himself into a matzav of a taiva that could cause this. And therefore the Rebbe says it's similar to what it says before, been negated to a matzav of shchia chazeke. So this is something that you have to be careful of. So the same thing over here, when you get to Tumas Keri, when a person exposes himself to certain things, so you can't say to yourself, oh, nothing's going to happen to me, it's not going to cause me to become Tameh. No, if something which is common, it's Shchia Chazeke, it is something that will affect you. Sagt Gemara, Ki have a miftiri me'adodi. So now, Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak were departing from one another. So Amalei, Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, Livrachan ma, the master should bench me. Amalei, so he responded and said, what am I going to bench you with? I'll give you an analogy from the following thing. A person that's traveling in the desert, and he's hungry, he's tired, and he's thirsty. And finally he finds a tree that has very sweet fruits, and has beautiful shade, and has a nice stream of water that is flowing beneath it. So he ate from the fruits, and he drinks from the waters there, and he sat in the shade of the tree. When the person wants to now get up and leave, Omar, he says, Tree, what should I bless you with? If I'll bench you that your fruits should be sweet, you already have sweet fruits. That you should have good, beautiful shade. You already have beautiful shade. That you should have water that should flow beneath you. There is water flowing here. So what else am I going to bench you with? Ella, the only thing I can bench you with is yiratzen. Should be the will of Hashem. Shekol netiyas shenaitin mimcha. All other trees that are planted from you, yiyu kamaischa, should be as beautiful as you. So now he said, Rav Yitzchak tells of Nachman, Afato, so to you, what am I going to bench you with? Im b'Teire, should I bench you with Teire? Harei Teire, you have Teire. Im b'Aisher, am I going to bench you with riches? Harei Aisher, you're already rich. Im b'Banim, I'll bench you with children. Harei Banim, you have children. Ella, what I bench you with is Yihiratzin, should be the will of Hashem. Shiur tzetzoi me'echa. Your descendants that come from you should be kemaischa, should be as great as you yourself.